Mike is with us this morning, along with licensed master social worker Nikki Adeleke. Good morning. Mike, you already had a heart of service. You were in the U.S. Marines.
Yes.
And then you had your financial background, worked for Schwab, Charles Schwab, and the whole bit. But what you did was combine those two to make a better America. Explain how you came up with this idea that we need to get in early with young kids in particular who are at risk.
Yeah, well, I feel like God prepares you for what you're going to do, and you wouldn't think the Marines and Charles Schwab would be preparation for the inner city, but it was. Marines know they get to take that hill. You take the hill. You don't go left. You don't go right. We weren't given a reverse gear in boot camp, so we jump in and go forward no matter what. And Schwab taught me how to speak and sell and continue to sell the vision. So we came into the Third Ward and just started loving on the community, working with the kids, and just kind of evolved over 13 years.
Yeah, and there were so many things that impact which direction a child will go. And Nikki, you certainly understand, I think a lot of us have to understand that, especially when they're so insulated in the community and they want to model the things that they see around them, good and bad.
Right,
and we certainly know when your back is up against the wall, those better opportunities are fewer. And that's what you want to come in and change that. Talk about environmental trauma.
So, when we think about a child in their community, we think about how we want to love a child and raise them. And so with environmental trauma, a lot of what we have seen in the community that we serve is that our children, our youth, our families have experienced trauma and bereavement due to gang violence, death, and we can't ignore that our children and our youth and our families are being impacted by that.
Gunshots should not be normal when you're growing up.
Right.
Funerals after funeral after funeral of somebody's cousin, somebody's brother, somebody's son should not be normal.
Absolutely.
How does that usually manifest itself in the future for these kids if there's not any intervention?
Well, if there's not any intervention, what we see is that with trauma, with toxic stress, it literally dysregulates the brain. It interrupts brain functioning. And so a dysregulated brain cannot learn. And so we place these high expectations on these children to learn and to perform and to succeed and to go to college and to do great, but we're not answering their needs first.
Yeah, and when we answer their needs, we're really answering the needs of an entire community. We have talked over and over again with the Center for Urban Studies with Dr. Steven Kleinberg, and he said, we will not have in this city in just relatively short amount of years, the workforce to fulfill jobs. And so what will happen is these corporations will leave, and that will leave the city economically depressed. This is a part of fulfilling that workforce and starting with fulfilling self-esteem and having a safe place to grow up.
It is. We've been looking at those statistics, and that's what's driving us. I think 60% of minority students right now are not coming out of high school able to get a skilled job, start a business, or go to college. And like you said, we're already having to import a lot of our skilled labor. So we know that work really starts between 0, 6, and 7 years old. Build the resiliency, build the self-awareness, self-regulation, and then prepare these kids for future success.
Yeah. Nikki, you and I were talking earlier, I was like, Adeleke, that's Nigerian, isn't it? So it takes me back to the African proverb of it takes a village. It will take a village. You brought over 50,000 volunteers to help clean up. Tell us about some of the other things you do in that community that lets that community, and in particular those kids, know they're not alone.
Well, 50,000 people have come through from all over Houston and the United States, painting houses, clearing lots, block parties. We take care of the senior citizens, planting flowers, mowing the yard, taking care of their wheelchair ramps, educating the kids, after school programs. We just really became a part of the community.
Yeah, and what is the power of when a community sees people come in from the outside and say, what can we do to help?
It's just life-changing because you acknowledge their need and you show that you're here to stay, you're here to help them transform their lives and to change the trajectory of their children's lives.
Yeah.
We're here not just to do a community service project and leave. We're invested in the community. We're invested in the lives of the children and our families.
And and I've got to say, to be able to lift that burden a little bit for someone, right? Yeah. So you started Generation One, and what was behind the name Generation One?
I actually didn't come up with that name. Somebody who was going to volunteer with us came up with the name and then didn't end up volunteering, but we kept the name. But but yeah, it's the one, Generation One. This will be the first generation of many, many, many to follow.
Yeah, another thing we're talking about, you said you were going to steal that, but I'm going to give it to you, is that when you have older kids, you can help older kids and older adults, but you can change the young ones. Yeah. And that's why you want to get in early there. And that equal opportunity to learn and grow. We have civil rights bills that passed years ago, and we said everyone has an equal right to, but we know that doesn't really actually, in reality, happen all the time. If you just drive into some of the inner city schools and see what they don't have, and a lot of times it's because it's supplemented in other schools because they have the money to do that, they don't have it there. And so when you give them this extra touch, that can make the difference.
Well, we've seen that genius, skills, and talents are equally distributed, but opportunity isn't. So what we're doing is coming in and providing the opportunity for these kids to succeed.
Yeah. What effects have you seen so far? Like, what's the impact you've seen so far?
Changed lives. Some of the funnest things we saw in the early stages as we got into social emotional development and some of these things is 3- and 4-year-olds would go home and talk to their parents. You need to use kind words. Mommy, those aren't kind words. And they would use some of our verbiage, and then the moms would come in and go, okay, what are kind words?
Yeah.
What is my daughter telling me? And then we get to sit down and have some awesome conversations.
Yeah, my son tried that. He said, Mom, kind words are like, no, honey, you don't have to do your homework. It's okay. You can play video games all day if you want to. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. And it's interesting the impact that a young voice can have. And sometimes we dismiss children. Right. But they're the ones who can actually impact the change in their own families.
Absolutely.
All right. You have partnerships because it doesn't happen without partnerships. Yeah. It doesn't happen without people supporting the program. How can we as individuals support this program, whether it's deep in, hands-on, or writing a check?
Well, those are the awesome ways. Our big partners, University of Houston Downtown, University of Houston Clear Lake, Texas Children's Hospital, they're helping us develop this trauma-informed social emotional learning. But we need mentors, we need tutors. We have an after-school program. We like to match every single kid up with an after-school tutor and a mentor. So you can go to our website and find out how to do that.
Yeah, and that's where modeling is important, where you have a parent who can instill the parenting skills, but when they see someone who says, you know what, and I used to be like you, but this is what I do today. They see that it is possible. All right, you were a beneficiary of the Jimmy Kimmel and Ted Cruz charity basketball game last year, so that helped as well. And the future of Generation One, eventually you're going to scale out to public and private charter schools as well, so this will grow, so we can capture kind of like a net every one of those young kids, those young minds to change our next generation.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Generation One is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. For more information, or if you'd like to make a donation to Generation One, log on to generationone.net/donation. You can also call them at 713-654-8008, 713-654-8008.